All right, Friday morning, Chase Sr. is in the house. We got a lot to talk about. Did the Niners actually make a bid for Micah Parsons? John Lynch seemed to indicate that. We'll talk about it right now. Come aboard. Off and running on a Friday morning on the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. We're also brought to you by Habbas Law and Sleeper. We'll tell you more about them in a bit. But first, we welcome in Chase Sr., who last night watched the Eagles beat the Cowboys and to kick off the NFL season. It was an eventful game. We saw Jalen Carter kicked out for spitting. Chase, before we get into the Niners, do you have a takeaway from last night's game?
So the voice is a little bit hoarse because I was live for that entire game last night, and with that hour weather delay, the live stream went about 6 hours, and so feeling a little bit today, but excited to talk some Niners with you today. Obviously, the Micah Parsons remark from John Lynch, Christian McCaffrey being hurt, but some of my biggest takeaways from that game last night, you see the special, I think, with Philadelphia, that if they correct some of their mistakes moving forward, you never want to peak in September. They can be really good toward the end of the year. I thought Jalen Carter was an idiot for doing that to Dak Prescott, but Dak Prescott kind of provoked him. I thought Jalen Hurts was terrific in that game, making just winning plays really impactful with his arm and his legs. Honestly, a big takeaway for me, I was impressed with Dallas. Like, I thought Brian Schottenheimer, Matt Eberflus had a good game plan after the weather delay defensively. They made some nice adjustments. Schottenheimer was calling the plays up against Vic Fangio as a first-time play caller as a head coach, and I thought Dak Prescott looked awesome. He threw some really nice balls downfield. CeeDee Lamb really let him down. And the defense, which has been awful against the run, was good against the run. The Cowboys haven't been able to run it at all the last couple of years, really since Zeke was in his prime. And their offensive line had major question marks. But last night, I thought they ran the ball effectively. And so I look at the Cowboys as a potential double-digit win team, potentially. I was impressed by them. But Philadelphia's coaching and their talent throughout the course of 60 minutes, I thought was going to win out. And it ended up winning out. The weather delay really impacted the offensive flow. Like, the two offenses were humming up until that delay. The Cowboys had scored in the first half 4 times on 4 drives. The Eagles scored 3 touchdowns on 3 first half drives. And then after the weather delay, it was really a defensive slugfest between the two teams. And I thought the adjustments were nice. So good win for Philadelphia. I think the Cowboys are going to be competitive. And it was a very eventful way to kick off the 2025 NFL season. That's for sure.
You know, every team's different every year. This Eagles team was great last year, and they won the Super Bowl in convincing fashion. But you mentioned Dallas struggles to run the ball, and yet they ran for 5-4 a carry on 22 carries. Yep. How alarming is that? I mean, Philly got the win, and that's, you know, as they say, the moral advantages of losing have been greatly exaggerated. So there's no advantage in losing. You want the W. But for Dallas to run for 5-4 a carry, with Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, to me, that was an eye opener. How concerned do you think Philly is about that?
Well, I've said this going back to last year. I think Jalen Carter is one of the best overall players in the NFL. And so when he goes out before a first play is even run from scrimmage, Dak Prescott said it after the game. It changed our entire offensive strategy. They ran right toward where Jalen Carter usually is. And so I thought his loss was felt, and you saw his greatness without him playing, because this Eagles defense is not the same unit without Jalen Carter as it is with him. He is that good. And so I think context is very important there. There's also this, while the Eagles defense struggled in the first half, they pitched a second half shutout. And so they didn't give up any points after recess. And so I thought the adjustments from Fangio in the game, that's a big reason why he's probably the highest paid defensive coordinator in the game. But Carter being out, that was felt. And what I give the Eagles credit for, they made the necessary adjustments throughout the game to really shore things up defensively after halftime.
Yeah, you know, interesting, though. Philly, who had, you know, a bunch of sacks and hits on the quarterback in the postseason. 1 hit on the quarterback, no sacks allowed.
Yeah.
I
A
mean,
lot of new personnel, Larry. They're replacing more than 4,000 snaps lost. And so that's a lot of playing time that you're trying to make up for. They didn't play as a collective unit in the preseason. Lastly, I'll add this. The Eagles defense early last year was pretty bad the first 4 weeks of the year. They had a week 5 bye. From that point on, that's when they really found their groove. And so once they figure out some personnel, I think they'll be better than they were against Dallas. But shoot, they gave up 20 points when Dak was connecting with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, and you gave up 5.5 yards per carry. So I think there's some room to grow for Philadelphia. They'll get better. But yeah, some concerns that we'll have to continue to monitor for sure.
One of the things that came up, I heard today, I was driving down here, I was listening to John Lynch's interview on KMBR from yesterday. And Lynch, in the interview, when he was asked about, I think it was from yesterday, it might have been from early in this morning, but Lynch was asked about Micah Parsons' trade and what he thought of it. Was he surprised by it? I always thought that was funny to ask an NFL executive if he's surprised by a trade that comes down when these guys are in the loop on that stuff. Almost always, but maybe not. But Lynch said, hey, look, I don't want to say anything about Parsons, but he did say, you make a lot of calls. And then he went on to say, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So it made it sound like, but then he said, but we were never really in it, or we were never really close enough. It wasn't really a fit for us. But it did sound like the 49ers picked up the phone and may have made an offer to Dallas for Micah Parsons. How surprising is that to you?
Well, we are talking about a guy in John Lynch who traded for Bryce Huff earlier this offseason. He had 10 sacks and 67 pressures under Robert Saleh in 2023. He made a huge trade for Christian McCaffrey. He traded for Chase Young. And I know Chase Young hasn't had the career that a lot of people thought he was going to have coming out of Ohio State, when I thought he was an elite prospect. But keep in mind, had that knee injury a second year, hasn't been the same since. But at that time, that was a huge blockbuster move for San Francisco. They've given out big money deals to their own players and other players in free agency. And so John Lynch has been aggressive as a general manager. I think that's how you have to operate in professional sports. You win by being aggressive. And when you reach out to the Dallas Cowboys about a Micah Parsons trade, it does a couple of things for you, right? Call to see what the price tag is. Call to check in, because if the price tag is at a point where you think you can make a move, and keep in mind, San Francisco has cap space and they have draft capital, and the asking price is better, more affordable than you thought, shoot, it might make sense to make that type of trade. It also helps you gauge what the trade market might be for other players across the NFL. And so you can start planning for things like that. And yeah, obviously it would have been a blockbuster for San Francisco. Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa at the 2 defensive end spots. Then you have Mykel Williams as a backup at defensive end who can also play defensive tackle. Then you have Bryce Huff as the other backup. You need multiple pass rushers to be successful in today's NFL. You want to keep them fresh all year long, and you do that with the pass rushing rotation. And so fascinating if the Niners would have made this move. I think it's always important for a general manager to make calls like this, to gather intel around the league, and to try to improve your football team. You want to stay in that aggressive mentality. This is why Howie Roseman is the best GM in the league, because he's always looking for ways to load up his football team with stars and with depth. And I think this is John Lynch just looking into doing that, improving his football team, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, no, I like the fact that he's in the deal flow. The best way to make deals is to always be in the deal flow. Let's talk about Christian McCaffrey. He was listed as limited yesterday in practice with a calf injury. The 49ers have not been the best team as far as transparency with injuries, that's for sure. And we were told all summer, this guy's healthy. He's never looked better. What about the tendinitis, the Achilles tendinitis in both his right and left Achilles? Oh no, that's all gone. That's all thing of the past. There was never a surgery to repair it that I know of, unless there was some international surgery, minor surgery.
He went to Germany for the stem cell stuff.
Right. So, but I mean, is that a surgery?
Not
as
a
much
surgical
as
procedure. Exactly.
It's a treatment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, I mean, What is your takeaway on CMC? Is this a situation where, the calf is awfully close to the Achilles and we should prepare ourselves for, the 49ers going to have to go this year without Christian? Do you think it's that serious? I don't know that we're going to get a straight answer from the Niners. What's your take?
It was one of those moments last night that when you saw the news come across, we all said to ourselves, are you kidding me? Deja vu from last year. This can't be happening. Christian McCaffrey has been healthy throughout training camp. He's looked really good throughout training camp. When healthy, he is one of the most dynamic, one-of-one, explosive, and best overall players in the NFL. The Niners are able to reach their peak offensively because Christian McCaffrey is the engine that really gets that Niners offense moving to a capacity in which they can be their best selves. And so given the injury history here, I think this is a major concern. It is a developing situation. Him being a surprise addition to the Niners injury report, some people speculating maybe it's gamemanship from Kyle Shanahan because there has been the Niners strategy all training camp and preseason long to manage his workload. Look, we were in the same situation last year. Christian McCaffrey going into year one popped up on the injury report, calf Achilles issues at the end of 2023, Larry. This is what this stems back to and goes back to. At the end of the year, you and I have talked about how McCaffrey wasn't healthy. Why? Because of a calf injury, the same calf. And so he's missed 10 plus games in 3 of the last 5 years. There was an injury history. He's an older running back. We know how running backs age. He's missed a lot of time. You gave him that huge contract extension, which was record breaking at the time. And so you've committed a lot of financial capital to him. When he's been right, he's been superb, but you can't count on him. And so Tom Pelissero had the report this morning, NFL Network. It's not DEFCON 1. We don't believe it's a huge concern. But look, I am concerned because last year we were told it wasn't a problem. He was a game time decision. Then he didn't play the first 8 weeks of the year. Then once he came back, he didn't look right. And he has the injury history. He had been healthy and now it pops up again. And you have PTSD a little bit because of McCaffrey's calf issue, which led to Achilles problems. But what also happened to Dre Greenlaw, this Niners organization and this fan base is a little bit scarred. So with how impactful he is, how important he is to this Niners offense, combined with the injury history and the concerns about this lingering, yeah, it's a huge concern for me with the Niners going into 2025 because this offense isn't as good as it can be without Christian McCaffrey on the field. He's that good.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the bottom line on this thing. It's like, if I told you that you're a runner, okay, you run long distances, you run what, 5 miles a day or something like that. You've done some
like
marathons,
3 at my peak, but I'm doing more strength training now. But yeah, I love to run. I run very frequently. Yeah.
Okay, so if I told you, hey man, I'm running a marathon in 6 weeks, but I'm telling you, man, I'm having a hard time getting through a mile right now because it's just I'm having a hard time. I'm having shin pain and I've got heel pain. I've got some knee pain. I'm having the darndest time. I get to about a half mile, 3/4 of a mile. Oh, and the pain starts to get really overwhelming. Oh, by the way, I'm running a marathon next month.
Not good.
You'd be like, bro, you're probably not going to make in the marathon. That marathon's 26 miles. And if you're hurting after 1 mile, that's Christian McCaffrey. He hasn't played at all. He's basically, had very light reps all summer long for the most part. They've babied him. Now here comes the hard stuff, hitting and tackling and physical. And it's like, what are the odds that this guy's going to make it to the finish line? That being said, if you're John Lynch, if this is serious, what would you do? What would you do? How would you react? I know they already traded for
Good
Brian
thing they
Robinson.
traded for Brian Robinson, right?
Yeah, I mean,
because Isaac Render can't stay healthy.
I mean, but what would you do? What would you just say, oh, well, we got Brian Robinson, we're set? Would you, I bring this up because I was doing a stream last night and the guy's like, hey, if I were them, I would try to call up the Jets and offer Jair Brown and a pick and see if I could get Breece Hall. And I said, that's interesting. I would do that too. I actually, in lieu of that, because that takes 2 to tango, I'd pick off Damian Martinez off the Seahawks practice squad. They cut him the other day. They re-signed him today or yesterday. He was a good player at Miami. He's a powerful runner. He runs through contact. You don't know if Brian Robinson can make it. You don't know what you're getting at a CMC. Garendo's just an athletic guy. He's not a running back. Jordan James hasn't played for weeks with broken fingers, for crying out loud. I don't think they got enough. I think I would go sign a Damian Martinez. To me, he's the most impressive practice squad back out there, and put him on your active roster. Cut one of your 10, offensive linemen. You don't need to go with 10 offensive linemen. They've done this in the past. They've gone with too many offensive linemen. Backup offensive linemen don't play. The Matt Pryors of the world don't even ever get on the field. So pick between Burford and Pleasance, cast the other one aside, see if they clear waivers, and use that spot on an extra running back. That's what I would do.
I love Breece Hall, and obviously he's looking for a contract extension. He hasn't gotten it from the New York Jets, and so he's not gleefully happy with his situation with New York right now. I do think because the Niners traded for Brian Robinson, a former third-round pick and a high draft pick like Breece Hall was, that the Niners aren't going to make another trade to that level. I also think it depends, right? If Christian McCaffrey is out for a long period of time, that might change and alter the thinking here. But there are two really big offseason additions that the Niners made here at running back, which can help you in the meantime as you try to navigate and see what's happening and try to get to what is actually the truth behind this injury and the severity. You traded for Brian Robinson, of course, but you drafted Jauan Jennings in the 5th round, and the 2025 NFL draft was one of the deepest running back classes ever, right? And if it wasn't that deep, we're talking about a player who normally would be like a 3rd-round pick. And so if you think of James as a 3rd-round pick instead of a 5th rounder, you're like, okay, if McCaffrey's out, we traded for Brian Robinson. Word out of Niners HQ is that they love him, and they think that he can change the course of this Niners offense and at least just add a different element to it because he's so physical. You drafted Jauan Jennings, who prior to him getting hurt, a couple of different injuries, finger and a knee, he looked good. Contact balance, very sure-handed. He can pass protect. He can catch the ball a little bit out of the backfield. While at Oregon, picked up yards after contact and never fumbled throughout his NFL career. Kyle Shanahan loves that. Bobby T loves that, right? Don't give me guys who are going to put the pill on the carpet. So I think they like Jauan Jennings. I like Jauan Jennings. And so I think that you can get by with Brian Robinson as your RB1. He's a starting caliber running back. Jauan Jennings is your RB2. I've cooled on Isaac Guerendo. Look, if you can't stay healthy, you kind of are who you are. You've been injured at Wisconsin, injured at Louisville, injured at the NFL. Now he's 220. He runs 4.3, and he's fascinating. But if he's your RB3, I think he's better suited there, right? And so that's a pretty good 1-2-3 punch. After that, though, Corey Connor's not coming back for a while. And so, do you poach a Patrick Taylor or, do you poach a Damian Martinez off of the Seahawks practice squad? I liked him coming out of Miami. I think he's a good player. Do you try to bring back Jeff Wilson, who looked pretty good in the preseason carries that he was able to get? And he obviously knows this scheme. So that's kind of my thinking at the running back spot. We'll see what happens with McCaffrey, but this sucks because I'll tell you this, for you and I, scout the game, analyze the game, evaluate the game. We love the game. This is why we talk football so much. This is why we produce so much content, right? Because we have a love for the game of football. To watch a special player like Christian McCaffrey is a privilege. It's an honor. And so from the football love of the game standpoint, for him to continue to deal with these injuries, and you maybe worry about his career as a whole, this sucks as well from that standpoint too.
What do you make of the Pelissaro take? He's like, I will say this cautiously. I do not get the sense, based on the conversations I've had, that there are alarm bells going off about Christian McCaffrey at this point. I mean, talk about
can't trust it. I can't trust it. We heard this last year. You're not fooling me again.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't. And also, if you're not alarmed, then what the hell then maybe you should be.
We're talking about a previous history of calf and Achilles issues. The calf leads directly to the Achilles. He's a 29-year-old running back, and you're telling me not to be worried? I'm worried. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it
Yeah,
just that just seems like Pelissero is just carrying the Niner
for
PR
sure.
bucket of water there. Um,
Mayoko, by
all
the
right,
way, just said he thinks he's going to
yeah,
be questionable for Sunday. So that's not
right.
good either. Not probable, questionable. He was questionable, right? If I'm not mistaken, for the Jets game week 1 last year. A surprise scratch prior to the game. He's a game time decision. Same thing.
The question is, did the Niners know this when they made the Brian Robinson trade? They probably did,
Well, you've
right? They
been there.
probably knew.
What's McCaffrey been doing?
I mean, he's in practice. He looks, I mean, he looks the way he looks. I mean, he doesn't look. I wouldn't say they're definitely going easy on him as far as the reps, but it's not like he's been out. He's been out there from time to time. I mean, the Niners have rest days for veterans. The Niners have, they'll have days where they've kept Christian out of team activities where he did part of practice, but not all. But, that could be precautionary. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
especially with a player as valuable as him with a history of injuries that he's had. But at this point, I just get the feeling that, it's like they kind of make up their own rules when it comes to the injuries. And it's like, they're very much, let's keep everything under wraps and let's, very only give the media and the press what you have to. But I think now you get, you can be deceptive all summer and nobody's going to call you on it. But once the games start, then all of a sudden there's gamblers involved. And then because of the gamblers involved, the NFL has very stringent rules about the injuries, and you can't play these injury games. You have to be straightforward, truthful, and honest.
Yeah.
And now suddenly in the straightforward, truthful, and honest week, the guy who wasn't hurt at all is suddenly really hurt.
Yeah.
But it's not that serious, but he's questionable. But there, I mean, it's like,
what do you think Breece Hall would cost in a trade? A third?
How many years of contractual control do you get? 2? Or is he a free agent?
I think he's a free agent. I'll check right now as you kind of explain.
I would say if you had 2 years of if you have more than this year, I would say you might have to move a third round pick.
Yeah,
some teams maybe a fourth. Some teams would be a fourth, but for the team like the Niners, who are probably going to pick at the back of the round, I'd say it's a third.
See, the more like you say that, and I'm like, I don't think so. But like, look, final year of his contract. Same with Brian Robinson. You're not tied to them beyond this year. Cap hit of $4.3 million. The Niners have what, $45 million in cap space. And so, yeah, no contractual control, which does stink if you really like the player. But if you don't want to tie yourself to a running back long-term, Robinson, Breece Hall, when you've financially committed to Christian McCaffrey, would this kind of offset things or at least help you absorb the blow? It's fascinating. There's no doubt about that.
No, I mean, it's another, major topic of conversation for sure. And we'll see where it goes. I mean, really it's as simple as that. All right. We'll take a quick time out for our sleeper read. The 49er football on the Krug Show is presented by Sleeper, the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world. It's a one-stop shop. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chat, season-long leagues, and of course, Sleeper picks for daily fantasy, where you choose 2 to 8 players pregame or live and pick more or less on their projections. If you're new to it, use the promo code Larry, Larry, and you'll get a $100% deposit match up to $100 on your first deposit. The link is right there in the description. Terms and conditions apply. All right, let's make a lineup. What do you think for Niners Seahawks? Is there a player that you feel good about that you'd like to? Obviously not McCaffrey.
Ricky Pearsall?
Yeah, let's check out Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall, I do think is going to have. He's 42.5 on the yardage.
I like the
3.5. Yeah, I like more, and I also like what I really like is I like more on the receptions.
Yeah, with the amount of deep crossers that he runs, Larry, the yardage is good and the catches is good. He's the number 1 wideout. He's getting targeted and he's catching more than 3.5 passes.
Now, what do you feel better about? I feel probably better about more than 3.5 catches than I do.
I like that. I think he has 5 to 8 targets. He should be in that realm.
So we'll go with more on that. Let's go to Kittle, because I think without CMC, I think Kittle is going to be a big part of this game plan. George Kittle, I think, is going to be utilized a lot more in the passing game. All right, so you have an anytime touchdown. You have 5.5 receptions. You have 63.5 receiving yards. What do you think?
I know it's risky, but more than the half touchdown. I think he
I
finds
like
the
it
end
too.
zone. Yeah.
I do too. Let's go with that.
I like him as the first time, score. Obviously, that's a little bit different, but yeah, I like that for Kittle.
How about Seahawks? You want to go with Jackson Smith-Njigba? You want to go with Cooper Kupp?
Let's take a look at JSN.
Yeah, JSN.
He's like criminally underrated.
He's going to have a great fantasy year, you would think, with no DK there.
I think catches, that's a lot. 5.5.
He needs 6 catches.
He could have like 5 for 75 easily. Yeah.
I think 62 yards seems reasonable. I think this guy's going to have like 80 or 90 yards receiving. I mean,
and that's
fine. I think this. Yeah,
but it is. Demo's been talking shit all off season long about the Seahawks, so he's really got to back it up.
I know, but both these guys are playing in kind of a uncomfortable spot, right? They're both playing outside.
Take a look at Kupp.
Okay, Kupp is going up against Upton Stout in the slot probably most of the day. 3.5 catches, 39.5 receiving yards.
The Pacific Northwest guy comes back to the Pacific Northwest. He's going up against a rookie. I kind of like that too. More than
Which one do you like?
Catches. More than 3.5 catches. Yeah.
Let's go 3.5. Let's go more than 3.5 catches.
I mean, he's the number 2, right? And Sam Darnold's throwing the ball. They have questions at running back. They're not sure who's going to start. So I think they're going to air it out a little bit. And so I think Cooper Kupp gets involved, especially against Stout.
Let's see K9. Let's go one more. Let me see K9. Because I think Walker could have a big day. 12.5. Is that 12.5 rushes? 72.5 rush yards. I don't know about that.
That's a little too high.
Maybe, yeah. No, I don't love it. That's too high.
What do we have? 3 or 4 already?
We have 3, I think. Can we go with 3? We can go with 3. We'll go with our 3 right there.
I like that.
All right. We'll bet 10 and we can win a total of $55.50. So big thanks to Sleeper. Remember, use the code Larry for 100% deposit match up to $100. Links right there in the description. Terms apply. Helps support the show and gets you rolling on the #1 sports app, Sleeper. And thanks to Sleeper for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. Jauan Jennings is signed, and the Niners, it's amazing. They didn't fold and rip up his contract. They didn't give him a big money extension that takes away his free agency. They literally just funneled him $3 million of opportunity money if he can achieve certain makeable incentives. Chase, I guess the question is this: why the fuck did it take so long?
I hate
why couldn't this be done? Why couldn't this have been done at the beginning of camp?
I mean, this is the same thing I said about the Trey Hendrickson contract. And this is like obviously a lot less money, but it's the same thought, right? The Terry McLaurin deal. If you're going to pay him all along, just get it done and pay him so that you can have him on the practice field. You can work on offensive continuity and timing. You don't have to rush to get him acclimated for week 1 with only a few practices prior to going up against a Seahawks team that had the 6th best EPA defensively the final 8 weeks of the year. You are relying on him and you're shorthanded at wideout. And all it took was potentially $3 million. It's not a guarantee. Jauan Jennings has to put up numbers in order to get those $3 million coming his way. And he seemed happy with it when he talked to the media, right? It's like, to Grant, you like money? I like money. I mean, it only costed potentially $3 million. And look, I think this is a win for San Francisco. You mentioned it, right? They didn't fold and cave into his contract demands. Him asking for $20+ million per year after one good year of production when he never sniffed 500 yards in a year before that, asinine. You're not Mike Evans. That's what Mike Evans is making. And if you want to make that type of salary, go out there and prove it. You know why players cash in on their second contracts after their rookie deals? Because they produce over a sample size of 4 or 5 years. Yes, Jauan Jennings has been great for this team. Yes, I love the way that he plays. I love how he's respected by his teammates and his coaches. He has made so many huge plays in big-time moments. The physicality, the swagger, the ability to impose himself on the opposition. It's also valuable, right? But he's not a $20+ million per year player. 11 to 15 is probably the range and the market for what he's done and who he is. And so for him to ask for 20 plus, yeah, the Niners shouldn't have given in to that. And now they only give him 3, and it's a win for them because it's worth it if he gets that $3 million, because that means that he plays very well, right? It's a win for Jennings because if he wants that bag, he maintains his free agency. He can have a good year this year, and maybe he does get that compensation after this year, and he can become a free agent to test out his market, and you're worth what somebody is willing to pay you.
I just think that it's amazing, the drama and the conversation, if you're worried so much about the dialogue and the
Yes.
solution was so obvious and basic. And, guys like Brad Graham threw it out to me in a live stream 3 weeks ago. He's like, yeah, I think they'll probably give him some makeable incentives, throw a couple more million his way, and he'll be satisfied. Well, if it's that simple, why didn't you? Here's my contention. My contention is that the Niners secretly didn't want him out there. Otherwise, why wouldn't you get this done earlier? This is a very easy, workable solution. Why couldn't you bring this thing to a head earlier? I think JJ and his agent tried to minimize the risk, didn't want him out there. I think the Niners were cool with it. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. It's kind of dumbfounding how these situations keep happening, right? And you're thinking the Niners learned their lesson. They got burned by paying Ayuk late. You also had to deal with the Trent Williams and McCaffrey contract situations. You were impacted by what happened with Deebo Samuel and Nick Bosa. And we thought, okay, maybe the Niners are going to learn their lesson, right, in just avoiding this type of drama, because they pay Deommodore Lenoir early. Then they pay Brock Purdy, Fred Warner, George Kittle early. And then they let this drag on and on and on and on. And I do think there's something to be said for this taking the focus away from football. And again, it's not like they had to give him that much money. Like $3 million is chump change if he performs well. And you waited all this time and you allowed this thing to fester this long over $3 million and a squabble that didn't need to be a squabble. It just like you, I'm scratching my head as well.
Makes no sense.
Yeah.
I mean, either you're really delinquent in getting your business done, or you didn't really want him to practice, or his guys didn't want him to practice. And you were like, we don't care. He's a big money player. Just make sure he's ready for week 1. So I don't know. I mean, Shanahan had a bunch of things to say about this injury. Calves are tricky. It's not that serious. He never once said it's grade 2, it's grade 3, it's going to be this. He never once put a timetable on it. When we was asked about it, he's like, go ask Jauan. It's like, there's a lot of dubious things. It just makes you wonder when you see how easy the resolution was and how simple that was. Why did it take so long if you wanted him there? I think the answer is they didn't want him there, or at least I don't think Rosenhaus wanted him there. What about this game? Let's talk quickly about this game. Robert Saleh said yesterday about his young defense. He said, put your seatbelt on, enjoy the ride. What are we going to be talking about Monday after Niners Seahawks? What's going to be the narrative here? Is give me what you think is going to happen in this game.
Robert Saleh is right. We have no idea what to expect from this Niners defense. They are legitimately counting on 6, maybe 7 rookies to have big roles for this team right away in week 1. And as the season progresses, they could be asking potentially 6 rookies to start for this Niners defense. That is more than 50% of the Niners defensive unit potentially having rookie starters, right? And so Micah Williams is going to start. Upton Stout is going to start. Marquise Siegel, he could start. On top of that, you're asking for contributions from CJ West and Alfred Collins. Maybe Nick Martin, although they might be hesitant to put him on the field because sometimes the game is just moving too fast for him. But with how impactful he is and how impressive he is when the highs are the high, he might be difficult to keep off the field. And so I think that quality coaching with Robert Saleh is going to allow these rookies to make plays, to be impactful. And their development is going to be on a fast track because of quality coaching. But because they're inexperienced players and they're new to the NFL and they're rookies, look, I'm telling everybody right now, get ready for it. This is why Robert Saleh said what he said. There are going to be some growing pains. There are going to be some busted coverages. There are going to be some missed tackles. There are going to be some lapses and mistakes, which lead to touchdowns and explosive plays. But it's important to remember that the Niners defense in week 1 hopefully is not the Niners defense that you see in week 18. For the Niners defense to be their best in week 18, you have to deal with those growing pains now, and you have to live with it. And you hope that the Niners young players can evolve and learn, improve, and get better from those mistakes that are inevitable and going to happen so that they can be their best at the end of the year. And so I think that's exactly what Robert Saleh's thought is. It's going to be a roller coaster ride. We're going to see a Micah Williams TFL sack and pressure stop against the run, and you're like, that's awesome. Then you're going to see Micah Williams struggle for a little bit as a pass rusher. You're going to see Alfred Collins and CJ West collapse the pocket and provide pressure from the interior. You're going to see them have some misses too. Upton Stout's going to be good. He's going to be going up against Cooper Kupp week 1. All right. It's going to be hard. He might give up an explosive play. Marquise Siegel might overrun something. He might over pursue. He might bite on a play action, leading to a play over the top to Jackson Smith and Jigba. But that's okay. You got to live with it. And so I think that's going to be a storyline here for the Niners. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey is a huge storyline for this team. And so if McCaffrey's banged up, if he plays, if he doesn't play, Brock, you got paid $55 million per year. You're shorthanded at wideout. You're banged up at running back. It's time for you to elevate your teammates, run this offense, execute and play well, because you have to carry the load now that you're the franchise quarterback in a hostile environment against a very good defense that is very well coached. And so I think those are all big storylines going into this game and coming out of this game, Larry.
To me, it's going to be such a riveting game.
Me too.
The off season is, build up, and, these teams are been trying to build up from a year ago. I mean, Seattle were 28th rated rush offense last year. They said, hey, you know what? We got a new offensive coordinator. We got Gray Zabel. We're going to commit to the run. Damn it. We're going to run the ball. This summer, they've run in 3 exhibition games over 5.5 yards a carry. They are running the ball effectively in the preseason, but it is the preseason. Now here come the 49ers. The Niners were like, hey, we need to stop the run. We need to stop the run. All the top draft picks were about run stoppers. Stop the run, stop the run, stop the run. We'll see if they can do it. I think in this game, Mike McDonald is Kubiak, the offensive side, is going to come out and they're going to try to run it down the Niners' throat. And if the Niners can't stop it, Seattle's going to run it 40 times and let Darnold throw it 15 times. And they're going to be content to win a ball control, clock dominating kind of a performance. So what's going to be interesting to me, the Niners practiced a 5-man front of the last couple of weeks. What does Saleh do if they start getting just absolutely gashed in the run game? Does he, what's his counter? The one thing I do feel better about is I don't think, Saleh, like Nick Sorensen, is just going to sit there and go, I guess we're just going to get beat. You know what I mean? I think he will have some answers. I think he will have some things that he can do. But we're going to find out. I think that's what I fear in this game, is that Seattle just takes the Niners' manhood from them by just running it down their throat and just saying, hey, here's your new defensive coordinator. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Here's your run, here's your run defense. Enjoy this. We're running the ball all over you. So I think this is a game where the Niners could win, they could lose, or they could be embarrassed. And to me, you got to go into that game thinking win the game. But the last thing that can happen, you can't get gutted. You can't get they run for 225 and 6.5 yards a carry, and you have no answers, and you tuck tail and get back on that plane. Just a beaten team, wondering if you have the goods to beat anybody in week 2 or beyond. This can be an emotionally crushing week 1 if they lose the wrong way and they can't stop the run.
Yeah, and I think the Niners know that, right? I mean, all off season, when they've talked about their team strategy going into free agency and in the draft, and obviously with the moves that they made in those periods during the off season, what was the emphasis, right? Getting better against the run. John Lynch literally talked about how what they wanted in an edge rusher, potentially at number 11, and obviously that came to fruition with Micah Williams, an edge setting defensive end. They know that they've been bad against the run. What do CJ West and Alfred Collins do well? Where did they thrive in college? Stopping the run, right? Why did you draft Nick Martin? Because he had triple-digit tackles 2 years ago, double-digit TFLs. He's good against the run. Upton Stout as a slot corner. What's his background, Larry? Really good against the run. Marquise Siegel. Why did John Lynch say he won the Swarm Award? Because he gets to the football, he stops the run. What does Malik Mustafa do? Stops the run. Renardo Green, Diamador Lenore, where do they grade out well in the categories according to Pro Football Focus? Stopping the run. But along the defensive line, the Niners have been really bad. Overall, the last couple of years, they haven't been able to stop the run. What that does is it impacts your offensive flow and rhythm, because offensive football is very rhythm-based, because your offense is on the sideline. It allows the opposition to wear you down physically, and when you don't have a lot of depth, you get exposed there. You play takeaway from the offense. You don't allow them the opportunities to move the ball downfield. You take the opponent's will, which can affect you mentally, and it's a great strategy, especially going up against a Kyle Shanahan-led offense, which is very predicated on rhythm, feel, timing, and synergy. And so the Niners know, like, we got to stop the run. It is really hurting us, and they've made moves to try to address that this offseason. But again, they're really young. So how do they hold up against the run? Now, what's interesting for Seattle, obviously, Kubiak is calling the plays. He's a Kyle Shanahan disciple, so they're going to run a lot of outside zone, and this offense is very run-friendly. But the Seahawks also are in a gray area because they don't have a clear-cut starter. It's either Kenneth Walker or Zach Charbonnet. They don't really know who that guy is, and so it could take them some time to feel out which back is a little bit better. But you're right. If the Niners can't stop the run, could be a long day, although I do think it's a close game that comes down to the wire.
2 last thoughts, and then we'll run for the door. But first, a quick mention to our brand new sponsor, Habbas Law. They're a great follow on, or they're a great company, by the way, and you should check them out. 1-800-INJURED is their phone number. And today's show is sponsored by Habbas Law. For more than 40 years, Omar Habbas and his son Tariq have been standing up for people right here in the Bay Area. They're great lawyers. They're fierce. They're relentless. They battle insurance companies. When you're injured, the insurance companies try to not pay, right? That's the game. Loopholes and this and that. Oh, we're not going to pay. We'll offer you this. We'll offer you that. But these guys know the playbook. They've been battling insurance companies and winning for decades. And they're tied here in the Bay Area to the community. They've got deals with the Giants and the Earthquakes, the Sharks, San Jose State, Santa Clara. If you need someone in your corner, you need a really good lawyer, call the law firm that insurance companies are hoping that you do not call, and that's Habbas Law. They're going to fight to make it right. Visit their website, habbaslaw.com. As I've said, if you know me, my dad, my late father worked in the San Francisco City Attorney's Office for 4 decades. My brother's an attorney, now a judge. My sister's an attorney. I've had nothing but attorneys in my family. And the difference between a great attorney and a terrible attorney is the difference between success and failure. And Habbas Law, these guys are fantastic. Omar and Tariq are outstanding. Once again, they'll fight to make it right. 1-800-INJURED. Visit them on the web at habbaslaw.com. And thanks to Habbas Law for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. All right, let's finish with this last 2 thoughts here. Who are we going to be talking about in this Niners-Seahawks game on Monday? Are we going to be talking about, wow, the positive from this guy or that guy? Or are we going to be talking about the guy that couldn't stand up and was the goat and wearing the goat horns, so to speak? Will we be talking about Salah's defense? What do you think, Chase? Monday, give me a prediction on the game and what you think we'll be talking about on Monday?
I'm a believer that this Brock Purdy, Ricky Pearsall connection is going to come alive. And if Pearsall can stay healthy, I think he has a really productive and breakout season. I think he's a really good fantasy play for those of you who are into playing fantasy football. I'm not, but obviously with my job, I monitor the value that players have from a fantasy perspective. He's just a really sound scheme fit. And I think that Kyle Shanahan can do a really good job of drawing up plays and concepts that will lead to him getting open and being able to make plays. The Seahawks secondary is really good. And so it's not going to be easy for Pearsall, but the connection that he has with Brock Purdy, they just seem to be on the same page. Right place, right time, good feel. And they've been able to work on that and develop that since Pearsall was drafted last year. Obviously, his rookie year, he had to deal with a lot of adversity. But when he came back and rounded it into form toward the end of the year especially, he started to play very well. And you saw he made some really impressive plays. And so I think Pearsall is going to have a breakout year, and I think he's going to be the go-to guy with this Niners passing attack. I also think with the trade of Debo and with Christian McCaffrey being hurt, a lot of the pass game is just going to go through solely Pearsall, Jauan Jennings, and George Kittle. And so I think we're going to continue to see George Kittle just being an all-world tight end. His numbers have really come alive when playing alongside Brock Purdy. He's going to kind of impose his will. Again, with defense, I keep saying it, but you got to harp on it, right? This is the reality. There are going to be some really impressive plays from these young players, I should say, but there are going to be some growing pains as well. And what else I'm going to keep my eyes peeled on, how does this revamped and remade Niners special teams unit perform? I'm talking coverage-wise with a bunch of new guys, and then with Jake Moody. Very alarming preseason for him after there was no real competition, in my opinion, throughout all of training camp and in the preseason. And do the good vibes lead to a Niners win? If they start off the year 1-0, they can really start to feel good about themselves. If they go out there and they're embarrassed, PTSD from what happened last year.
You know, there are not a lot of trades in the NFL. There really aren't. You don't see them. They're not very common, right? They're really rare. But the Niners made 2 in the offseason, and they brought in Brian Robinson and they brought in Bryce Huff. And those are the guys we're going to be talking about on Monday. Bryce Huff is too fast and has looked too good this summer. He wasn't a fit in the Eagles defense. He just wasn't. It's a different deal. He's a great fit here. We're not talking much about him. I think him and Bosa dial up heat on Darnold off the edge. Cross and Lucas are have struggled at different times in their career. I think it's Huff and Bosa getting to Darnold. I think Darnold throws 2 interceptions in this game because of the pressure of those 2 guys. And I think the Niners ride those 2 turnovers and a really good performance from Brian Robinson, who looks hungry and healthy and ready. I say Robinson goes for 85 yards at over 5 yards a pop. And I'm going to say Niners get the win. It's going to be a low-scoring game. I'll say 21-17 49ers, and they win it largely because of Bryce Huff. I'm going to say Bryce Huff is going to have a bust-out first game with the Niners. I think I'm looking at 2 to 2.5 sacks for Bryce Huff. I think he's really going to make his name heard in this game. All right, let's hit the big finish. I got to show you this. They say the NFL at the line of scrimmage is a hand fight. And some people are like, oh, come on, it's not a hand fight. It's football. Well, I don't know if you caught this last night, but this was brutal.
Tyler Guyton and Jalix Hunt.
Now, is this a penalty by Tyler Guyton? This is a left cross to the head. How's that not just a left cross? That's just a fist fight right there. Look at that. That's just boom.
Duke Mayweather, who trains a bunch of NFL offensive linemen, said this is just great, dominant offensive line play. I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, it is good hand fighting, but I'd say a slap across the helmet is maybe worthy of a penalty because it's called a penalty everywhere else on the football field.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they outlawed the head slap, right? I mean, the Deacon Jones head slap, and that's brutal right there. That's a strong left hand to the chops. Was that discussed at all by Eagles fans?
That's a Will Smith slap in the face to Chris Rock,
right? With some more power behind it.
The football version.
What did Eagle fans? I mean, don't tell me Eagles fans didn't notice that.
Oh, they noticed it, of course. And I'm kind of in the Twitter crosshairs for a lot of people. I have a tweet that has like over 1 million impressions because I said the Reed Blankenship penalty in the end zone wasn't a penalty on him, because what do you expect him to do? And so I thought the officiating was a little bit up and down. But look, I'm never really a believer that officiating is fully going to determine a game. There's so much else that happens that has more weight and value than officiating calls throughout the course of a game. Now, sometimes do the Chiefs get bailed out? No doubt about that. But usually, oftentimes, like people try to say, the Niners, they had the Super Bowl stolen away from them in Super Bowl 58. No, they didn't. Christian McCaffrey fumbled on the opening drive. Spencer Burford forgot to block Chris Jones. You muffed a punt. You missed an extra point. You had special teams lapses. That's why they lost, not penalties.
Good to see you, brother. Hey,
You
tell people anything you want as far as promote what you got and what you got cooking for the game, because I know you guys go live in game. Always love streaming with you, brother, and have a great weekend. You got any big plans? Any big college football plans? By the way, next week, Kev and I in the Big Easy. We're going to New Orleans.
What are you guys doing?
We're gonna drink and probably vomit in a bag.
Okay.
Oh, no, I don't know. We're gonna go to LSU, Florida on Saturday.
Are you going to the Niners game Sunday?
We're going to the Niner game Sunday.
Sick. That is gonna be awesome. Yeah,
we're flying in Friday. We're gonna hit the quarter. I'm gonna take Kev out to dinner a couple times in the quarter. John Chapman's having a little party, so I'll go to John Chapman's party. Then we're gonna head off to LSU, Florida, national TV, 6:30 start on ESPN.
What an atmosphere.
Baton Rouge, and then we will hightail it back up after the game and go see Niners Saints the next morning.
Very cool. Yeah, I went to New Orleans twice within the span of 4 months to start 2025, and so I'm on a little bit of a break from New Orleans right now. But I would love to join you guys. But yeah, what am I doing all weekend?
I like New Orleans. I'm trying to quit. Yeah,
it's a city that takes a toll on you.
Oh.
That is for sure. So you guys will be feeling it on Monday, but that sounds like a lot of fun. What am I doing this weekend? I love watching college football. I'm going to be watching college football. Obviously, tonight we have Chiefs Chargers. I'll be locked into that. Yes. And then tomorrow, a couple of good games, Iowa State, the nightcap, Michigan, Oklahoma, I think is going to be a really good game. If you like scouting young quarterbacks, Bryce Underwood of Michigan is really, really impressive. I'll be live for the Niners game on Sunday, keeping tabs on the early slate, Sunday Night Football, Monday night, and then we just do it all over again for every single weekend until February.
For Chase, I'm Larry. Thanks to our sponsors. The links are in the description. Practice starts in about 30 minutes. I will be out there. Chase, have a great weekend. We'll talk to everybody next week. Thanks for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of.